Hello everybody, welcome to week 3 of a year of game design. Still going, 21 days in the bank, haven't missed a day, and actually some of the sessions I'm starting to go quite a bit longer than a half an hour. I think a couple times this week I went to an hour just because I'm kind of getting into it and I want to get the next thing done. So that feels pretty good. I was hopeful that would happen, that a half an hour is easy to commit to, and that sometimes I would go over. So that's feeling pretty good. This is going to be a super short intro. Still thinking about the game jam, but I'm probably going to do it. I think it would be a good thing to do because I feel like I need to break away from tutorials and that kind of linear learning and really just kind of revisit some stuff and create stuff. I know the theme is cold, and again, I'll be making a last minute decision on that. Other than that, not much to say. I want to kind of jump right into the learning and kind of show what got done. I'm pretty happy. Got Blockbreaker done, and there's a link down below to it. And then started on Laser Defender. So let's take a look at what I learned, what's coming up, and places I got stuck, and how everything's going in between the ears too. Thanks for stopping by. Oh yeah, if you're, please give a subscription if you're enjoying it, and or a thumbs up if you have already subscribed. And let's jump in and take a look at the. So the first couple days, 2-3 days of this past week was spent finishing up Blockbreaker and kind of put in a bunch of different levels here. So now there's 3, 4, 5 different levels. So kind of playing with some different backgrounds, putting the blocks in different shapes, creating some different designs and things like that, which was kind of fun. And then the other thing we did here was create this little toggle switch which enables autoplay or lets the player play. And the cool thing about this is when this is on, I thought that would be really hard to code in. But actually, from a programming standpoint, it was really simple because that little toggle box just tells the script behind it, and we can take a look at it in a second, to either run one snippet of code that would allow the player to have control over the paddle and the ball, the paddle basically, or the program takes control of the paddle. And all the program does essentially is say, instead of letting the mouse position control the paddle, all it says is the Y coordinate of the ball controls the paddle. And so the paddle just basically moves along in the same position as the ball, as you can kind of see it doing it here. So once the player clicks, the paddle is just mirroring the Y coordinate of the ball. And it's a simple kind of thing to program in. It's basically only, I think, 2 lines of code, and then basically you've got a game that can kind of play itself, which is really cool for testing purposes and things like that. It can also make you look really cool if people don't really know that what's going on there. Looks like I'm a really amazing player. So that's the end of Blockbreaker. It does have a fatal flaw, and the fatal flaw essentially is, I'll stop this now, but the fatal flaw is that, well, it doesn't have any lives. It would be nice to put lives in for one thing. And also, if you get to, say, level 3 and you lose, the only place you can go back is all the way back to level 1 and start over again. So I don't imagine anyone would ever kind of play through this to the end or try to finish the session and things like that. But just for kicks and giggles, I've got the link into this. I put this up on I created a WebGL version, so it runs in a browser, and stuck it up on a server so that if people want to check it out, you can check it out. But I highly doubt anyone's ever going to have the patience to get beyond level 2 just because of the way the game's designed. And I thought about going and putting those things in, but then I said, it's not really worth it. I wanted to drive on and go into the kind of the Laser Defender, which is the next thing we'll take a look at. So here's what I've been working on in the second half of week 3. Basically, once got the Blockbreaker game done and moved into this one. And the view looks a little bit different. A couple things. This is Laser Defender. So the idea is going to be kind of a vertical thing. You hold it on your phone and you just kind of a shooter. The ship down here, the player at the bottom moves around and it shoots stuff up here. And the enemy spaceships are going to be flying all around and stuff like that. So because it's a smaller game screen, we're able to take the scene builder over here, which this left-hand side that I'm moving around is basically where you're dragging all the elements and moving stuff around and manipulating stuff. And then you can immediately see the game view over here. So this makes it a little bit easier because you can see both things at the same time. And then again, as kind of a quick refresher, this left-hand side are all the objects that are in this particular scene. And this game, I'm thinking it's only going to have one, which is just a main scene where the game happens. And then down below here at the bottom of the screen, we have all of the things that are in the whole project. And so you pull things from these project folders up into the scenes so to be able to use them to build things in here. So this is kind of a bigger area. This is the smaller stuff you're using just in the screen. And then if we click on something, say for example the player, On the right-hand side, we have the inspector, which shows all the attributes of that particular thing. But yeah, so making quite a bit of. I've also moved the installation over to my PC off of my Mac. My Mac's kind of old and it's kind of sluggish, and I was getting frustrated because it's taking a long time waiting for things to process and stuff. So this is a newer PC that I put together a few months ago. It's nice and crisp and brisk, and so this feels like a much better workflow. I'm happy with this workflow. It just feels quicker and better. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, if we take a look at what's gotten done, this is about, I think, 3 days worth of work right now. So let's hit the play button, and this is what's going on. So the right hand screen, you can kind of use the arrow keys and move the ship around. That's pretty cool, right? It flies. And you'll notice that if you fly over to the edge of the screen, it doesn't go off the screen. Now, the enemy's just an image right now, so that's not an object. It doesn't have any rigid body on it, so we can't crash into it or anything like that, or even shoot it down yet. But so that's, I think, what's coming next, basically, is instantiating enemies, bringing enemies into the game, having a pathway that they're going to follow, and they're going to shoot stuff, and so you're going to build the other half, really, of the game here. But then check it out. If we hold the spacebar down, pew, fires. Isn't that cool? Pew. And if you hold it down, continuously, it just keeps firing. And so that's pretty cool. So I've got a few things in here. And then you'll notice on the left-hand side here where we can see all the objects that are in the particular scene. And if you watch carefully here, when you see the projectiles go off on this left-hand screen, you'll see them vanish. And so let me just do that. So there they go. And you'll see how they instantiate over here on the left-hand side. And then as they hit the screen, they're disappearing. And basically that's so if you don't, we put a little field in here, just what's called the shredder field here, up here. When the laser hits that, it destroys the laser. The shredder field destroys the laser. And if you don't do that, otherwise you'd have these lasers just flying off into infinity. You'd have thousands of the things after 5 or 10 minutes, and the whole game would just kind of slow to a crawl because it has to process all these lasers that are no longer in play because they went off the screen. So that was kind of cool. So a lot of fun things. In only 3 sessions, I feel like made a lot of good progress. I think what's coming up next is to put enemies in again and then instantiate those and kind of have them move around in a pathway. And I've never done that before. I don't think I've had... Oh, actually I have. I do remember doing that now. I've done a couple games where you fall on a pathway, although I think this might be a little bit different, but we'll see. But it's something I've totally forgotten anyway, because I didn't even quite remember that I did it. So that'll be kind of relearning that. And then I imagine there's going to be sounds and effects. And then, of course, something's going to happen so that when the laser hits the ship, it's going to register damage and stuff like that, and probably scores and elements and things like that too. So a lot of things still to come forward. I'm pretty kind of excited about this one. Is a little bit more engaging to me than the Blockbuster one. I feel like this is, yeah, we're making a shooter and blowing stuff up. That's kind of cool. So yeah, and in terms of, let's probably a good idea. Let's just take a little bit of a look here at the code. If we're looking here at the Visual Studio, there's really only, at the moment, there's a code on that shredder field that destroys the lasers, but then the player code right here that we can look at and kind of scroll through is the main scripts that are in the game right now. And this involved a lot of good learning for me. This was pretty cool. Kind of just putting some fields in for some different variables in the game. But then down here, a really cool one at the bottom here is what's called viewport to world point. And basically what that does is, regardless of how far away the camera is from the scene, from the background and the ships and stuff like that, it's going to clamp the ship to the edge of the screen regardless of how far away you put the camera or how big the camera view is. So that's pretty cool. That's super handy. So if you decide you want to change your camera location later, the ship still can't go flying off the screen regardless of where it is. So that's really helpful. That was pretty cool. The thing I'm not concerned, talking about like, okay, areas that I might be stuck in and things that were a little confusing, I felt like things were coming a little bit faster now. So concepts are coming quicker, and some of them I don't have all that great of a handle on, or I forgot them. I kind of have remembered them. So it's like, okay. But I slowed down and I kind of went back through them and they started to make sense again. In particular, we started to learn about coroutines, which are basically little functions that run and then delay so something else can happen. And it's kind of a way of creating pauses and delays in the functions. And I might be totally butchering this explanation because I don't quite I get the basics, but I don't really understand them. And in this case, the thing that I don't understand here is how they're used in the firing routine. So right now it's set to input get button down. So when you press the fire button down, which elsewhere in the program we have set to the space bar, it's supposed to start this little function which is called fire continuously. And here is fire continuously, which is what's called a coroutine. It basically creates a laser, so it instantiates. You can see it creates the laser, and then it sets the rigid body that's on the laser flying off at a certain velocity. And then it's then yield, return new, wait for seconds. This is basically just a tenth of a second delay. But I don't get how that works with this, because when you press the fire button down, it's not supposed to work again until you press it again. But somehow this coroutine with this little wait delay in it here kind of re-enables this routine. So I understand what it does, but I'm kind of like, what? How does that work? So I don't quite get that yet. So that's something, a little note to the side, that's kind of understand coroutines better. So I have to kind of hold that little bit of ambiguity off to the side and just not get all freaked out about it, because I'm not quite sure what's going on. But other than that, in terms of like how I'm feeling and stuff like that, let's go back to the game here, I'm feeling and everything like that, pretty good. This week was fun. I felt like, most times a lot of times I was going past 30 minutes. I'd go 45 minutes, maybe an hour, because I wanted to put the next thing in. And I feel like I'm starting to remember things better and starting to have a better sense of what I'm doing. Having said that, there are a couple times I got frustrated because I couldn't do the little mini challenges in the course, or I did them and I kind of screwed them up. I was like, wait, what? Okay, I don't remember how to do this, or I don't know what we're doing. And I had to look at the answers. A couple times that I didn't really quite understand the directions that what he wanted us to do. But there are a couple times where I just screwed it up. And that's to be expected. You just kind of have to suck it up. But I hate to not get those, because I feel like that's where, for me in particular, some of that real learning comes, is that I'm going to be able to understand the concept and apply it to my own game without being walked through the steps. And that leads me to the final thing, which is I'm starting to think like I'm going to make a decision right before it starts, but I'm starting to think that doing the game jam would be really good, because it'll force me to take this learning and apply it to kind of unscripted and non-tutorial situations to really start to learn it a lot better. So I'm thinking it might be a good idea to do that game jam. Not really sure. But anyway, there you have it. So emotionally pretty good. Got a lot of stuff done. We're going to work on enemies and kind of moving enemies and sounds and blowing stuff up as we go forward here. So having a lot of fun, feeling pretty good about it. We'll be back in a week. If I do the game jam, I might do special game jam episodes, but I'm not sure yet. I'm going to see how that all works out. I don't have a lot of questions with that, but I'm going to make a last minute decision on the game design, the game jam again, and then come back there. But thanks again for stopping by. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to keep up with events and stuff like that, please subscribe. And I'd love to hear your comments, any feedback, ideas, questions, things like that, or things you're curious about. Please feel free to jump in and share. And thanks again for stopping by. Hope you have a great day.